Here's my story of how I was able to get faster and run longer just using the Maffetone method. And I'm talking running slow. It doesn't seem like it's very obvious. Running slow makes you faster. Yeah, I didn't think so either. So I kind of looked into it. So you want to run faster, you want to run longer, you don't want to get injured, and you want to have fun and improve. So how do you do it? What method do you use? Well, I use the Maffetone Method, a.k.a. heart rate training, and I run slow. I'm like a turtle. Now, there's some benefits to it, but there's a number of cons to it as well. So let's talk about some of those and how you can be able to use the Maffetone Method to be able to run longer and faster. So let's get a couple of things straight. I am not saying that this is the only way to get faster, to be able to run longer. This is just my story. There's going to be some of you that are going to be able to run way better than I am. Some of you have been doing this for a long time. Some of you are kind of just like me. You're like middle of the pack, want to lose weight, you want to get faster, but you're getting older, you don't want to get injured, all those things. That's kind of what was going through my head when I decided to start on my path, my running journey to get faster and be able to run longer and enjoy the sport. I'm not going to go down into the whole entire story because I've done a number of videos on that, so you can see that on my channel. However, what I will say is this is my second time doing this Maffetone method, basically running slow at a heart rate that kind of keeps you out of the injury box. Now, I also said on my previous video that, look, not everybody is going to benefit from this whole running slow thing, like this whole Maffetone thing. Just because somebody says run 180 minus your age, that isn't really what you have to do, is it? I mean, there's like elite athletes who are running longer, running faster, setting world records. I'm not one of those guys. And I never will be. And I don't want to be. But what I am saying in this video is that whatever method you decide to take on, whether it's an 80-20, whether it's a run-walk method, whether it's this periodized base building, Maffetone method training, look, you have to figure out what works for you and also what's sustainable. For me, to run longer and to be able to get faster, there's a number of things that come into play. And some of you have maybe thought about this, but this is just my story on my second go using this method. It's a little different than my first. Look, this time I've got like a lot more weight. I actually had probably about 40 extra pounds on my frame when I started this method this second time round. And man, it sucked. I didn't want to have it. So I was trying to figure out what could I do to lose the weight again. And I realized that why don't I just go back to the method that I used before, because it worked and it was very helpful in getting me to run a 50-mile race. Like, holy Toledo, why don't I just do what makes sense and stop procrastinating? So I did. And this journey of being able to run longer and faster at the same heart rate is something quite astounding. So this time round, yes, I had 40 extra pounds. Now, was that a detriment to my speed? Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, you try hauling around an extra 40 pounds on your body and yeah, you feel it. Yeah, you're not as fast as what you once were. Oh, and I'll tell you, sometimes you just want to quit. You just don't want to do it anymore. But I stuck with it and I started to see some things start to change. I've also mentioned in the past a number of videos, yeah, I'm building a base. I actually started by hiking and now I've transitioned into the whole running side. But my running is very different than it was a number of years ago when I used this method. And it was a little bit more lenient. I was a little bit more freeing with regards to the pace that I ran. Now, when I say the pace, I mean my heart rate. My heart rate is basically what dictated how fast I ran. And I made some changes. Kind of 180 minus your age, I took a couple of liberties. Wanted to see what the result would be. Like, is it tied to a number, or is that just an arbitrary number to kind of keep you in that zone so you don't run too fast? Because sometimes we as runners, we like to do that. We like to push the envelope. We like to be able to run with our friends. We like to do tempos. We like to do thresholds. We like to do track workouts. Well, okay, maybe not all of us, but some of us do. And that's okay, because like I said, this isn't the end all and be all. This is just a method that I've used, and it's worked on quite a few occasions to get me faster at the same heart rate. The big find for me is the consistency. It's the consistency of getting out there every day and doing something, whether it's a walk, whether it's a run. I don't care whether you're bike riding, whether you're cycling, whether you're swimming, it really doesn't matter. To me, it was like, Dave, just get out the door, put in some movement, track it, document it, and see what happens. See what that result looked like. And I did. And over the last little while, I have seen some fantastic results. I've gotten 4 minutes faster. I've been able to be consistent, like 20 days of running consistently. I've been able to up my mileage on Sundays and get some long runs in as well, like the longest runs that I've done in quite some time. Some of the things that contributed to that was a mindset change. It was, look, I could sit down and at home and just drink some coffee, read the paper. Okay, not that I read the paper, but I scroll on my phone. You could do things like that. Or you could get up a little bit earlier and get out the door and then feel awesome for the rest of the day. And so that was one of the things I did. I just kind of valued myself. I just valued my time and what I wanted out of this. Now, to run longer and faster at the same heart rate, there was a number of other things that absolutely needed to change. And one of them was I had to clean up my diet. Man, I just couldn't keep doing what I was doing. It was just, I don't know, man, it was hard. Sugar is so flippin' addictive. And I got into the habit of having a little bit too much, even in my coffee. So I made conscious decisions to kind of eliminate that out of my diet just by using MyFitnessPal to track the food that I was eating. Because I thought if I tracked the food that I ate, I'd actually be able to see what the heck I was doing to my body, and then I could understand the results that I was seeing. And so that was a big change that I decided to make. So question of the day is, what method have you been using over the last number of years, and how have you found it with regards to your training? Are you getting faster? Are you enjoying your running? I'd like to know. Comment below. Now, stress is a big part in my life, and running does put stress on your body as well. So I also had to be very aware of that. So I had to make sure that I was running slow, I wasn't running too fast, and I had to stay kind of in that heart rate zone to make sure that, I could kind of not put too much stress on my body, because my job is very stressful. There's so many things that are my responsibility, and I got to represent people the right way, and there's so much research to do, and there's late nights, and there's meetings, and everyone wanting to give you coffee or tea or food when you're sitting at their table talking about business. Like, it's all like nice things, but these things kind of factor into my life. Kind of getting rid of all like the snack food. Yeah, this plant-based, snack food, I just had to kind of remove that from the diet, because otherwise I would, it just wasn't serving my body any, it wasn't good for me. Let's just say that. Now, when I was running, I also had to change a number of things with how I was running, because, I'd be like, a chest breather, right? Like just right from the chest, nothing from the diaphragm. So I had to remember my video where I talked about, being able to breathe through your nose, right? Nostril breathing. And I brought that back into my running, and I'm like, yeah, okay, I remember how amazing this was. Now, there's been all this talk about getting enough sleep, right? How much is good sleep? I mean, how much should you be getting, right? Because there's some people who get 9 hours of sleep. There's some people that only get 4 or 5 hours of sleep, and everybody seems to do well. at some point until it doesn't work anymore. I had to figure out what good sleep looked like. I had to figure that out because, you know, when you're out there putting in the miles, you need to make sure that you're recovering well. So I had to kind of dial that in and start tracking what my sleep looked like. And I realized at first sleep wasn't great. My sleep was like 4 hours disturbed. And then, you know, I was up, I got cats, they want to be fed early in the morning, just all those things, right? So I had to start making some changes, and I did. So I started getting, you know, closer to 7 and 8 hours sleep. And that's made a massive difference in how I responded and how I recovered. Like I said, I used my Coros Vertex, and there's a number of features on there that I use. I'll be talking about that in another video, but that I use to kind of track where things are and how things look like in my training. Running at a slow heart rate takes a lot of time, takes a lot of patience, takes a lot of mileage. So if you're looking for a quick fix, this ain't it. My mental state needed to change because I'm like, if I'm doing this, I need to make sure I have the time to do it, and I'm going to be doing it, you know, the best I can. By adjusting a few things in my life, I was able to kind of eke out enough time in the mornings to kind of get those runs in, make myself a priority, and allow the results to slowly start taking effect. And yeah, they do take effect, but it does take a while. Some people see really fast results. Some people are like 3 months, 4 months, 5 months. Slowly and steadily. Like my first year, I got 3 minutes faster in 1 year by doing this. And was I exactly at my MAF heart rate? Not on all of my runs. Like it wasn't like 100%. Like, yeah, I would go over. I was still learning these things, right? And this time around, I'm different again. Like I'm not fully training at the Maffetone zone every single second of my run. There are some liberties that I've taken. I wanted to see. I wanted to use myself as an experiment to see, is it a number? Is it consistency? Is it my diet? Is it sleep? Like what is it that gets me the best result? And one thing I've learned, it's not just one thing. It's a multitude of things that contribute to better fitness. And the one thing I really love about the Maffetone Method is it at least gives you a way of measuring what your fitness is like. Over time, you can start to see if you are benefiting, are you improving? And you can do that very simply by doing a MAF test. And I've been doing those, and it's been fascinating to see a second time round. Now, there are some of you who are going to struggle with this method, and it may not work for you. And it could be, if you're over 60, you could struggle, right? If you're in your 20s and lower, you could struggle. Even if you're in like your mid-30s, you may struggle. Use it as a way of a guide, because we as runners, we like to take that liberty and run a little too fast sometimes, right? And we tend to all of a sudden be running in that, you know, gray zone, in zone 3 a lot. And then before you know it, you find yourself injured and you're like, oh man, I got to start all over again. And it sucks. And you don't like it. However, Maffetone Method kind of keeps you honest, right? It kind of keeps you on track because again, it's a number that you can use as a way of gauging your fitness over time. If you're in your 60s, what you may want to do is you may want to add on a couple of beats. You may want to add 5 or 10 beats on and see, using a MAF test over the course of a month, to see if you're improving. Because again, he didn't have enough data to do his tests back when he did. He didn't have enough people at the time. That's what I read and what I've listened to. So you can actually add on 5, 10 beats, see what happens, do some MAF tests. And if you're improving, great, keep on at it. If you're not, then back it off and see what happens. Now, if you're in your 20s or even in your early 30s, you may be running way too fast. So you may have to dial it back 5 or 10 beats and see what happens, right? And keep doing your MAF tests, because otherwise you may burn out. So again, it's not an exact science from what I've been able to figure out over the time, but it is a way of tracking and not overtraining for the average runner. Now, over time, I've been able to add in some long runs, right? Just kind of increasing by 10% of my mileage each week. And that's made a difference. When you run a lot, you're pretty excited and you're happy. But you need to watch out that you don't overtrain. I mean, you could keep running for as long as you want, but eventually your body is kind of going to start breaking down. So you need to kind of look after yourself when it comes to a lot of the mileage, because the Maffetone Method, when you finish, you feel like you could just keep on running because, you know, you've been running so slow. It's like, let's just keep on cruising at that same pace. Like, it just feels effortless. You just got to make sure that you're not running too much, right? Because again, you'll know, right? You'll know, because if you start to train too much, your body's going to tell you, your legs are going to tell you, your heart's going to tell you, and you're going to have to like listen to that. Because if not, injury may be around the corner. I'm excited for things that are going to be happening over the next little while, because I am going to be training for a half marathon and a marathon. And I will announce when those are, because I'm still kind of in the thought process, but the training is going well enough, and I'll bring you along for those. And I'll show you how I train. Using my Kuro Swats, I'll show you, along with their training hub, I'll show you how I put it all together right from the beginning, and then I'll train all the way up to that marathon, and I'll run, right? And I'll show you how it all works for me, because again, a lot of you have asked me, you know, how I do this. Like I said, some of you have been doing this for a heck of a long time. You already know the drill. You know how it all works. I don't need to tell you. Like I said, you're probably way better than I am. Again, I'm just, you know, sharing my results and my experiences using this method along my journey of running. Some of the cons that I've noticed using this method are my cadence. My cadence is not great. My form is not very good. I kind of shuffle along. My arms don't flow as well as I would like them to. And that's just something that I've noticed on myself. Now I'm working at it, but when you're training using this method and you're running so slow, those are some of the things I've noticed. My cadence, my form, and my shuffling, it's kind of hard. It's easier to walk sometimes. It's just a process sometimes you got to get through to be able to run faster. It comes, it happens, but at the beginning stages, it's not a lot of fun and it sucks. And it may not work for everybody. Now, cardiac drift happens to me as well, but the more that I continuously train, I'm actually seeing that cardiac drift happen later and later and later. Now, when it's hot like it is right now, yeah, I do see the drift start happening sooner, but when it cools down, my fitness is just underneath. And because of that, I know that when fall comes, like when you know, it's a lot colder, I'll be able to run faster. I know that for a fact because I've gone down this road a couple of times. Without going into the specifics of how to use the Maffetone method, what I would suggest is if you're kind of thinking about like, I could really get into this if I only knew what I had to do. Well, you can click this video right here. It'll give you all the details on how to do that. Till next week, get out and run. See ya.